Everybody has an origin story, whether you are Spider-Man or you're just your average gamer. You have an origin story. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jay. Welcome to Square Pegs. My friends Jen and Scott recently did a video about 5 games that made Jen a gamer. And that's a take off of something that the Poor Man's Retro Game Room did as a video a couple of weeks ago. And I really love the idea because I think one of the most unique things about this community and one of the most unique things about every single one of us as a gamer is we all have that origin story. We all have games that turned us into a gamer. And I'd be willing to bet that most of these are going to be different for all of us. Now, this list is supposed to be 5 games, but I've never met a rule I don't like to break, so we're going to have a couple of honorable mentions, and then there's going to be one particular section that has 2 games in it. But we're going to kick things off first with our honorable mentions. And up first, I would be remiss if I did not mention Atari football. Now, I am not an Atari fan. If you've been on the channel for any length of time, you know it's not my game. I am just not a fan of the console, not a fan of the controller, not a fan of the entire idea. But without this game, this channel does not exist. I remember vividly the first time I played a video game that really stuck with me, and it was Atari football with my cousin Greg. I've told the story on the channel in the past, but I went to his house. We were there for a holiday around Christmas time, and we were there, and Greg had an Atari in his bedroom. And it was just so cool to see my older cousin, who I worshiped the ground he walked on and still do in a lot of ways, and be able to play a game with him because he wanted to play with me, his baby cousin. It was the best feeling in the world. It was something that I looked at and just couldn't believe how lucky I was to be able to play a game with my cousin Greg. Now, he worked me up one side of the field and down the other. I had no idea what I was doing, no clue what was happening, and he absolutely wiped the floor with me. But I wouldn't trade that memory for anything because that one game of Atari football with him led me to my career in the game industry, led me to where I'm at now, talking with you amazing people about video games. So it is because of probably 10 minutes of game time playing this game that this channel even exists. And yeah, 100% without this game, I would not be the gamer I am today. All right, next honorable mention, and I would show it off, but it is elsewhere right now. There's a new game room under construction, and I've already moved over some of the NES stuff, and I forgot to bring it back over. But it would be Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is kind of the spark that lit my RPG fire. It was the thing that really got me interested in JRPGs. It's a game I still enjoy to this day. Like, I love Final Fantasy 1 and 2, Dawn of Souls on the GBA. And it's still a quality title. Like, the music in the game is spectacular. All the different classes you're able to choose from are wonderful. The world of the original Final Fantasy is fun. It's such a great game, and it led me to like my favorite personal genre of video games is the JRPG. So because of Final Fantasy, I have played games like Suikoden, like Persona 5. It all stems from there. It all stems from that time on the original Final Fantasy, and just being absolutely enthralled with this massive world of high fantasy and magic and sword fighting. It's great. Absolutely loved it. Final honorable mention, and yes, I'm doing 3, not 2. I apologize. Number 3 honorable mention would be a game that really saved my ass when I was a kid. So growing up, I split a lot of time between summers with my grandparents or the rest of the year with my mom and stepdad, or vice versa. If I was living with my grandparents, I would summer with my mom and stepdad. And one of the things that really got me through that time was my Game Boy, and one of the chief games on that was, of course, Tetris. It's ubiquitous. Everyone had Tetris. Everyone knows Tetris. Everyone loves Tetris, even when you're not good at it like me. But Tetris was a game that was equal level. You could play Tetris with anyone, and anyone would have fun with it. And it was just a fantastic title. It still is. It's still great. This is still the best version of Tetris ever released, other than Tetris Effect, which is brilliant. This is so much fun though, and yeah, just kind of pouring through AA batteries on the trips from Florida to Massachusetts was something that I treasure. I feel terrible about all the damage I caused to the environment as a result, but it kept me sane, and it was awesome to play Tetris in the van or in the car, and during travel, it was wonderful. All right, so honorable mentions are out of the way, so let's talk about the main games, the ones that really turned me into a gamer. And when I'm looking back and I'm looking at games that I really obsessed over, I really just poured hours upon hours into, one of the first that came to mind was a sports title on the NES. And I know a lot of you are going to go, always talk about Blades of Steel, or you're talking about ice hockey because I'm such a huge hockey fan, but no, actually, I'm talking about what is my personal favorite sports game on the NES, and that's Baseball Simulator 1000. I am a absolute just fanboy of this game. I think it's wonderfully brilliant. There is such a great mix of standard regular baseball by using any of the normal teams, But then you have the kind of crazy wackadoo baseball that Baseball Simulator 1000 is known for, where if you choose any of the Ultra teams, you get superpowers for your players, basically. And it was just such a blast to play and just such a fun way to play a game. Now, is there anything really exceptional about this game? No, not particularly. It's no better than really 90% of the baseball games on the NES. It's not better than Baseball Stars. It's not better than Dusty Diamond's All-Star Softball, but it is a game to me that I obsessed over and I just poured hours upon hours into, and I loved it. And I still play it to this day. Like, this is one, when I started collecting retro again, I actually picked this up at the first convention I was ever a guest at CorgsCon in 2022. John Riggs and I went out and we ended up going to a store. I want to say I picked this up at a store called Capital Games in Columbus, Ohio, and it was dirt cheap, and I couldn't pull the trigger fast enough to pick this one up, and I'm just so stoked to have it. And it's just fun. Like, it's just such a classic, easy, simple to understand sports game that I can't help but enjoy it. Now, I've told this story in the past on the channel, so I will keep it fairly brief here, but one of my favorite games on the NES and my personal favorite Mario game on the NES is not Super Mario Bros. 3, actually. It's Super Mario Bros. 2. And there is a reason for that. So when the first Super Mario Bros. Came out, I was at a fever pitch. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic, but there was always something else I could play. It wasn't something that was an all-encompassing obsession. It wasn't something where I needed to play it. There was just something about the game that never fully clicked for me. It's despite the fact that I was at that fever pitch when it released, there was something about it that just never completely connected for me. But there was something about Super Mario Bros. 2 that was so instantly appealing to me when I first saw it in Nintendo Power that I knew I had to have it. Now, we didn't have a lot of money at the time, so my mom told me if I wanted to get it, I needed to earn the money for it so I could buy it on my own. And I was able to work with her at the camera shop she worked at, and I helped set up a display in the front window and all this other stuff. It was great. And I remember vividly driving to the Toys R Us in Braintree, Massachusetts, and buying this, picking up the little slip out of the video game aisle and taking it to the front counter, and then going to the video game cage and getting it home. And most vividly, I remember reading this in the back seat of the car probably about 30 times on the drive home because I was just obsessed and I could not wait to play it. And it's something that I played constantly. Like, this was easily my most played game that year. It was something that I never took out of my NES, something I never stopped playing. And it was something that I beat fairly quickly, but I kept going back and playing it again because there was 4 different characters in the game. They all played differently, so I could play a level with a different character each time I played it and have a little bit of a different challenge. I thought it was brilliant then. I think it's brilliant now. It is, to this day, my favorite NES Mario game, and that's with admitting that Super Mario Bros. 3 is a better game. This is still my favorite. I was aware of Sega. I was aware of that battery is dead. Please hold that thought. Apologies if the lighting's a little bit different here. My battery on my main light died, so I'm using my backup light right now. But I remember when the Sega Genesis launched, I was ridiculously excited for it. I wanted something new. I wanted something different. I wanted something fast. I wanted to play something that made me feel like I was moving quickly. And no one epitomized that more than Sonic the Hedgehog. I was aware of Sega before the Sega Genesis. I knew about Afterburner. I knew about it in the arcades. I knew about the Master System and Alex Kidd and stuff like that. But it was never something where I felt the compulsion to want to play their console until Sonic. And Sonic changed everything for me. That was such an impactful game for me. And it is the reason that the Genesis is my favorite 16-bit console to this day, was that initial experience playing Sonic the Hedgehog. It was amazing. It was so fast. It was so incredible. It was so brilliant. I couldn't help but love it. But it wasn't the only Genesis game that really captivated me. And the other one, of course, is Toe Jam and Earl. Now, Toe Jam and Earl was my first exposure to the idea of a roguelike game. It was something that changed every single time you played it. There was an infinite number of possibilities of the way the worlds are going to be developed. The memorable villains, the memorable power-ups, the idea of collecting the different spaceship parts to rebuild your spaceship to get back to Funkatron was something that just made me so happy, and I was so excited to play it. And you pair all that with the incredible soundtrack to the game. It was the perfect game for me on the Genesis. These two and another one that's coming a little bit later were my main obsessions and things that really transformed me as a gamer. And I really think that these games here, Sonic and Toe Jam and Earl, were ones that brought me forward and really kind of evolved who I was as both a person and as a gamer, to try new things and to try different things, especially things that challenged me and challenged who I was and challenged my preconceived notions of what a game could be. I love the Genesis for that, and I love these two games in particular because of that. All right, sticking with the Genesis, and I could have put this in with those and kind of done something else here, but this one I think needs to stand on its own because it's led to a now 3-decade obsession with this series, and something that has continued to be something I enjoy playing, even on the down years when the games aren't great, and that is the original NHL hockey. Now, this was something to me that was just a perfect experience. Hockey is my favorite sport. It has been my favorite sport for decades. It was something that when I put it into my Genesis and got to play it, it just immediately clicked and immediately spoke to me. It was something that was pure. It was 5-on-5 hockey. It was not kind of playing fast and loose with the rules like the NES hockey games did, or were bad like the NES games that observed the rules of hockey. This one was actually a great title and was actually an incredible experience, and something that to this day, while this isn't my favorite entry in the series, obviously everything kind of improved from there, it's still a great game and it's still fun to pop in and enjoy. I love the NHL series. I have every single entry in the series that has ever released since its inception in 1992. Not every copy, but like one version of every single year. I'm not that obsessed. And it's something that I will continue to buy and something I'll continue to keep up on just because I love it that much. But that all stems from here on NHL hockey on the Sega Genesis. All right, and number one, this is one that just came back into my collection recently. Thank you to my friend David for that. But this is my favorite NES game, and probably my favorite platformer period on the NES, and or run and gun platformer on really any console. And there's a lot of competition there, and I'm sure there are better games, but this is my favorite. Kind of like Mario 2 is my favorite Mario game on the NES. This is my favorite entry from this franchise, and that is Mega Man 2. I remember vividly renting this. We rented this there was an apothecary in Westport, Massachusetts that had a video store attached to it, and we used to go once a week. And I would rent a couple of movies, frequently the really god-awful made-for-TV Marvel movies, like the one where we had Captain America with the rubber ears attached to his helmet, or porn stash Doctor Strange. I'd rent a couple of movies, and we rent a couple of video games as well. And I remember the first time I saw Mega Man, I thought the box art was atrocious, but it was better than the first Mega Man, so it had to be a better game. When we rented it and I got it home, and I was just absolutely blown away with everything the game offered. The ability to choose my own path, the memorable enemies, the fantastic level designs, the huge sprites and the creative enemy designs, the robot masters were all fantastic. It was something that immediately just fixated itself in my brain and made me want to play more. And it was something that to this day is influential on me, and something that to this day I love. Mega Man is my favorite video game character. No matter what. It is, as much as I love Mario, as much as I love characters like Nathan Drake, like Sly Cooper, Mega Man is number one. He is my favorite video game character and from my favorite video game series, and that is my favorite Mega Man game, is Mega Man 2. And it was absolutely paramount to who I was as a gamer, was playing that one. But there you have it, my friends. There are my 5 games that made me a gamer. I'm not going to challenge anyone in particular to do this. I'm just going to open this up. If you want to do this, please do a response video. Tag me in it so I can see what games influenced who you are. What was your origin story? I definitely want to hear. And if you don't want to do a video, let me know in the comments down below. I love interacting with you guys. Love talking to you. If this is your first time here, that is super awesome. If you enjoyed the video, why don't you click that thumbs up button down below. The engagement helps the channel out. If you really enjoyed it and this is your first time, like I said, I think it's awesome that you've made it this far. Why don't you click that subscribe button and stick around? I would love to be able to hang out with you moving forward. Until next time, folks, I've been Jay. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me and finding out a little bit more about who I am and my origins as a gamer. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.